Hello everyone, I'm Captain Courageous and I review old school modules and games and try to give them a fun and informative analysis. TSR is back! The company that originally published Dungeons & Dragons has returned, or has it? I've got all the pertinent information and I'm going to share it with you right here on RPG Retro Reviews. So my social media feed was on fire this week as TSR's new website went live and a promotion for the company's new RPG Giant Lands was given its own press release, and TSR's new CEO, Justin Lanasa, began speaking rather prominently in many of the top old school Facebook groups that I'm a part of. To say that there's been a bit of confusion about what's happening and what the future holds for this relaunched company would be an understatement. So in typical fashion, I'm going to do my best to break down everything I know and do my best to perhaps clear away the fog of confusion. To do that, I'd first like to talk a bit about IP or intellectual property, copyright, and trademarks. Intellectual property is an umbrella term and it can refer to any type of creative works, from inventions, novels, to specific designs or ideas. In order to protect one's intellectual property, a creator will typically claim copyright, apply for a patent, register a trademark, or guard a trade secret. Establishing intellectual property rights is key if one wishes to monetize their idea or creation. A trademark is a symbol or word that visually represents the idea or creation a company is producing and are legally registered with a governing body. The company's logo or the logo of a product are examples of a trademark. Only the company that owns the trademark can use it on their products unless other companies are allowed to license it out through an agreement. The idea here being that potential buyers will associate the symbol with the quality of the product. Copyright pertains specifically to creative, literary, dramatic, musical, and artistic works such as poetry, novels, movies, songs, computer software, and architecture. Though it is important to note you can't copyright an idea itself. So, for example, you can copyright the game Dungeons & Dragons, but you can't copyright the idea of role-playing games. In general, you do not have to register a copyright. It exists as soon as it is created. Though in order for you to legally claim infringement in a lawsuit, some means of registration will have to be established, and in the United States this is accomplished through the U.S. Copyright Office. Different countries have different rules and fees in regards to this. With all that in mind, let's briefly, and I mean briefly, otherwise this would take up the entire video, discuss the history of TSR. Originally, TSR was established by Don Kay as Tactical Studies Rules in 1973 so that Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson could publish their new game called Dungeons & Dragons. The original partners were Don Kay and Gary Gygax. In order to finance the publication of the game, a third partner was brought in, Brian Bloom. Sadly, Don Kay died suddenly in 1975 and TSR was reestablished as TSR Hobbies. Don Kay's widow, having no desire to be part of a game company, sold her rights to the company to Brian's father Melvin. Eventually, Melvin transferred his share to his other son Kevin. The two brothers together then held the bulk of the shares of the company. In 1985, due to financial mismanagement, the Blooms were ousted from their executive position in the company, and they in turn sold their shares to TSR Vice President Lorraine Williams, giving her a majority share holding of the company. Williams at that point essentially reduced Gary Gygax's active role in the company to practically nothing, and Gygax left the company he helped found in 1985. For a time, TSR flourished under Lorraine Williams' management, but several missteps led to TSR's insolvency. The first was a failure to maintain any significant cash reserves, and the company was heavily leveraged. Competition from collectible card games led TSR to make several failed attempts to break into that market. However, the company's sales in 1996 were still significant, totaling over $40 million. The major misstep by TSR was a failing to establish its own publishing house. Typically, once a publishing company like TSR reaches a certain level, it takes over the logistical tasks of publishing itself rather than to continue to license that task to another company. In TSR's case, they continue to use Random House just like they had done since the first edition of the game, Dungeons & Dragons. This became problematic when, in 1996, a large amount of unsold stock was returned for credit by booksellers, an arrangement that is typical in the industry. With no cash reserves on hand to pay Random House for the returns, Random House refused to print any more product until the debt was paid, and since Random House held the printing plates for TSR's lead products such as the Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and Monster Manual, there was no way for TSR to sell their way out of the problem. So with no financial way to resolve the problem, Lorraine Williams sold TSR to Wizards of the Coast in 1997. For a time, Wizards of the Coast continued to publish Dungeons & Dragons products under the TSR logo, but dropped it in 2000 with the publication of the third edition of the game. Fast forward to 2011 when Roll for Initiative podcaster Jason Elliott discovered that Wizards of the Coast had let the TSR trademark lapse in 2004. Along with Luke and Ernie Gygax, Gary Gygax's sons, Elliott established TSR in order to publish Gygax Magazine, a successor to the much-beloved Dragon magazine. However, that venture soon stalled due to copyright conflicts with Gary's widow Gail, and Gygax Magazine ceased publication. There was also a Kickstarter to re-establish TSR's old spy RPG, Top Secret. Fast forward to 2021, and it appears that once again TSR has risen like the phoenix from the ashes to reform once more to begin publishing role-playing games, though TSR has been around for a few years selling TSR Dice t-shirt memorabilia in the form of the Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum. The company has now firmly entered the RPG gaming space. Based in Lake Geneva, as in the days of old, the management team is comprised of Justin Lanasa as the company's CEO, who apparently managed to snag the TSR IP and logo while working at the Dungeon Hobby Shop and doing a trademark search. Gary's son, Ernie Gygax, as the executive vice president. Jeff R. Leeson, primarily known to old-school D&D fans for publishing the classic module The Hidden Shrine of Tomoichin, is the chief operation officer. And Steve Deinhardt, co-author with Jim Ward of the soon-to-be-released Giant Lands RPG, is the chief commercial officer. Gary's son, Luke Gygax, is not involved in this current venture. However, the launch of this new iteration of TSR has been anything but smooth, and confusion abounds as to what exactly is going on. Given the rocky history of previous efforts, confidence in this new venture has left many with lots of questions, and I'm going to do my best to try and clear away the fog. I've had the opportunity to speak at length with TSR's CEO Justin Lanasa, who shared with me what's currently happening and plans for the company's future. TSR's newly launched website doesn't exactly help matters much. It boldly declares, "We're bringing the RPG back home," referring to the fact that the company is based in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, the birthplace of TSR and the publication of Dungeons & Dragons. Scrolling down on the website further states, "We're bringing the band back together." Indeed, several established TSR artists from the company's glory days have contributed to the upcoming Giant Lands release. Jeff D., Larry Elmore, and Jeff Easley. In my conversation with CEO Justin Lanasa, other TSR luminaries were name-dropped, such as Tim Kask, Frank Mentzer, and Mike Carr, though what the specific future or potential contributions from these classic TSR artists and editors wasn't provided. The website also states that TSR will be creating new experiences, and the tabletop role-playing games mentioned are Giant Lands and Tales and Tots, though exactly what Tales and Tots is not specified. However, the shop link leads to an opportunity to pre-order the first edition of TSR's leading game Giant Lands for $80, with a specific release date of August 2021. Giant Lands is a tabletop RPG by Jim Ward and Stephen Deinhardt, and according to the verbiage on the game's Kickstarter page, is evolved from Ward's previous effort, Metamorphosis Alpha and Gamma World. I have to say that when I heard there was a Kickstarter for this game back in 2019, I was floored. I mean, I do not remember seeing anything about it, though a quick Google search leads to the Kickstarter page, where you can see that it was successful, with 77 people contributing $8,000 to bring the project to life. However, the comments and updates on the Kickstarter page show that the pandemic threw a wrench in the works. The product has not been fulfilled as of this video, though it appears that indeed the game will go out to backers in July. And according to TSR's website, those who jump in on the pre-order will be fulfilled in August. Specifics on gameplay, however, are a bit hard to come by. There are no online independent reviews of this game, though since the Kickstarter is over 2 years old, the game is certainly complete. There are clues, of course. The picture of the game's contents on the Kickstarter's page show it comes with a pair of percentile dice, and Jim Ward's brief description on the gameplay goes like this. In combat, each player character has a percentage number or lower that they need to hit. They are told the armor class percentile of their foe, and that percentile subtracts from their roll. Say a fighter needs a 1 to 40% to strike a foe. That fighter is facing a large bear. In this system, fur is a minus 5% for the armor class value. The fighter rolls the dice and immediately subtracts the 5% for the fur. Okay, so this is a percentage-based game system. Whether or not this is class-based or skill-based isn't exactly specified. There is a setting background provided as well. This game also takes place on a post-apocalyptic Earth, 3,000 years after the goddess Gaia awoke and brought devastation to mankind. The goddess returned to life the giant races of legend. The giants created 13 kingdoms using sigils of great power. Mutants as changelings walk the earth. Little pockets of humans survive in tribes, and general civilization as a whole has devolved into savagery. There's magic, psionics, androids, cybernetics, and other mishmashes of both science fiction and fantasy elements. To be honest, to me, this recalls to mind the classic Saturday morning cartoon Thundar the Barbarian. Players quest after sigils that will bestow upon them additional powers and mutations. TSR's newly created website has more information. The only product currently available is the pre-order for Giantlands, and in addition to the above information, the promotional scroll says the following. While you can play this game at a table, it's also the key to a new active world, where live action roleplay and costumes are encouraged. Soon you'll be able to join us at live events and a Giantlands theme park, where you can go on adventures as your favorite characters in a living game world. What? Dress in costumes? A theme park? This game hasn't even hit the market. There's no sales history, no online reviews, nothing. And in the competitive RPG industry, one can only approach such ambitious declarations with guarded optimism at best. Honestly, I'm not aware of much demand for a live-action role-playing game, though in 2021, cosplay is certainly a thing. As for a theme park, that sounds fanciful. One assumes this theme park would be in Lake Geneva, but certainly that's going to require extensive travel for just about everyone else in the rest of the country. Is there really going to be that many players of this game that such an extravagant concept could support itself? Certainly this has a lot of people scratching their heads. Let's also address the elephant in the room. Is this new TSR going to produce new content for Dungeons & Dragons? According to Justin Lanassa, yes. They indeed plan on employing classic TSR authors to create new advanced Dungeons & Dragons content through a special licensing agreement with Wizards of the Coast. Which is great news. Certainly the OSR community would be excited to have new content from the game's original creators being produced under the TSR trademark and licensed under the Dungeons & Dragons name. However, when asked directly, Lanassa admitted there were no formal agreements with Wizards of the Coast in place as of yet. Going forward, this new iteration of TSR faces a lot of challenges. The RPG market is a crowded field, and even with a built-in fan base excited for new content from this fledgling company, this new rollout hasn't exactly been smooth, and the confusion shows a certain level of infancy in the understanding of commercial rollouts. There is also a level of miscommunication and misunderstandings among those involved in the company itself. For example, as I was writing the script for this video, Jim Ward posted the following on his Facebook page. Add to that, the old school renaissance has sprung up in the last 20 years, revisiting many of the old TSR classic rules and creating fantastic, original, and unique adventures to play. Frog God Games and Swords and Wizardry, Daniel Proctor and Labyrinth Lord with Goblinoid Games, Gavin Norman and his very excellent old school essentials and Necrotic Gnome, and over at Dark Wizard Games, Mark Toromino is creating Gonzo First Edition adventures whose art and production rivals anything TSR put out in its early days. Not only that, they have established their ability to manage Kickstarters successfully with massive numbers and rapid turnaround times on fulfillment. Where in this new space does this reformed and reintroduced TSR fit exactly? Name recognition and tentative connections to those involved in the original company will only get you so far. Lanaza himself added a bit of fuel to the confusion fire when he dropped this flyer indicating that TSR would be holding a gaming convention at Horticulture Hall in Lake Geneva, and quite a few old school Facebook groups I'm in. For those not in the know, Horticulture Hall was the location for the first Gen Con in 1968, so certainly the flyer was intended as a throwback to that time, but the convention hall, such that it is, has a very small capacity, less than 200. The post generated quite a few "is this real" replies. Though no official date for the convention has been established, Lanasa insists that this is indeed a real convention in the planning. So there you have it, everything I've been able to uncover about the latest rollout of the new TSR Games Incorporated. As a longtime gamer, I can only approach this new iteration of a much-beloved game company with cautious optimism. The company's plans and ideas thus far stated I would classify as ambitious, if not fanciful, but certainly I wish them all the best in their success. If any further significant information comes to light, you can be sure that I will do my best to get that to you as soon as possible. What are your thoughts on the new TSR? Do you have any insider information you'd like to share? Please post in the comments below. And that's about all I have for you right now. Thank you so much for watching. Later this week, I'll have a review for you from Dark Wizard Games. Mark Toromino was kind enough to send me the latest printing of Palace of the Dragon Princess Adventure module, and I'm excited to give you my take on this brand new Osric D&D content. Certainly, I also want to finally get back to the much requested review of Isle of the Ape by Gary Gygax. As always, to my patrons, thank you so much for your support in making these videos possible. Please click the subscribe button and click the little bell so you'll get notifications when I upload new content. Like, comment, and share. Join the RPG Retro Review Facebook page and consider supporting the channel by becoming a patron yourself. As always, my friend, may your D20 roll true and game on.